Please welcome Mike Anderson.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for that really lovely introduction, Gabby. So, do people recognize these games? Maybe just by show of hands, quickly? Okay, that's enough. Cool. All right, because I'm stupid, I forgot to put a few slides. I sort of made the assumption people would know these games in my vast arrogance. But yeah, I'm going to talk to you for the next 45 minutes or so about things we've learned making these games with a massive focus on Monument Valley 1, simply because that's the game where we made a name for ourselves, and it wouldn't be fair to just be like, Monument Valley 2, we didn't have any marketing. Like, the success of Monument Valley 1 has driven the success of our future titles, so I want to be fair on that. So, first little intro, what we refer to as lore in the industry. Who am I? I'm Mike. You should have been paying attention. So, I'm a producer. I'm going to tell you more about stuff I've done. This is like my fourth job in the industry. I used to work at these places, Sega, back in the UK. That was my first, it was my dream job. I was a games tester. I had just graduated, testing like a bajillion games in the space of a year. It was actually quite terrible, but it was character building, I guess. Moved on from there to Lionhead Studios, where I worked on a project which was canned in true Lionhead Studios fashion, so it's never going to see the light of day, and I can't even tell you what it was. And then moved to this other studio called IdeaWorks, which was a mobile game studio. I think I'm going to be the third speaker in a row to reference the N-Gage, but they made a name for themselves by porting Tomb Raider, Pandemonium, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater to the N-Gage back in the day. I always tell people this company's shut down, but that's not true. They've just rebranded to the very British-sounding Marmalade game studio, so they're still around area East London somewhere. So from there, I joined this company called ustwo Games. It's really cool. I'm going to tell you all about that. While I have a platform, I want to quickly do a shameless plug. Me and a few friends have this organization in the UK called POC and Play, and it's sort of a diversity and inclusion initiative, just trying to sort of help underrepresented ethnic people be represented in the games industry. And I had to do it, I'm sorry. So what do I do at ustwo Games as a producer? We're still a pretty small studio. We have about 30 people, including a few contractors, and so regular stuff, scheduling, big meetings. My main thing I try and do is just keep my team unblocked. I just try and I keep them hydrated. People are really bad at drinking water, so I'm constantly saying, have you drunk water today? No. All right, have some. I give them hugs when they feel sad. I just do anything that they need to be unblocked. Maybe it's just a piece of software. Maybe it's my Wacom tablet's broken. Can I get a new one? I buy all that stuff so they could just focus entirely on what they're paid to do, basically. So, who are ustwo Games? There's actually quite a lot of misinformation out there. There's a company called ustwo, and people assume that ustwo and ustwo Games are exactly the same thing, and then gets into a lot of confusion, so I'm going to give you a bit more lore into ustwo. So it was founded back in 2004 by these two men. Two people founded the company, hence the name. Mills and Sinks. Mills is the one who only wears shorts. So this guy. And so they started out making apps and mobile, before apps even. They made wallpapers for Sony Ericsson phones. They did themes. I believe they made the Walkman application on some of the old Sony Ericsson phones, if anyone's young enough to remember that sort of stuff. As of today, they have 6 studios worldwide. I'm really sorry, these are supposed to be Unicode flags that I made on my Mac, but they don't work on Windows. So studio in London was the first one they built. Then Sweden, they had one in Malmo, New York. These 3 sort of sync up with roughly when we made Monument Valley, and since then they've expanded to Australia, Japan, and now Portugal. The reason they started even entertaining the idea of making games is because a lot of the work they did was what is known as white label work. Basically means you would do work for a client. They were a client-facing company. Create something for this client and don't be credited for it in any way. Just get paid, and no one knows the fact that you made this awesome piece of software. So obviously for a company who relies on additional clients, it's not the best thing to do. So the company was taking some of its profits, investing it back in itself, and had a small studio within the studio making original IPs. Stuff like this, playful things. This app was called Mouth Off. It's simply a little mouth replacement app. You just hold the phone in front of your mouth and speak, and the mouth will move in time with your voice. And it sort of just let people know, we're here, we do kind of cool stuff. Also, we can do this really serious stuff. And they expanded from that to making their first game called Whale Trail. Anyone know Whale Trail? It's pretty cool. Oh, nice, there's a few. So Whale Trail was their first very serious attempt at making games. And it did kind of well for them over like a space of 2 years. I think they spent like £250,000 working on it. They weren't quite sure what to do, but they knew there was something in games, and they decided that they'd want to hire some games industry professionals, myself included, and do a really serious job at making games. So fast forward from like 2004 when they founded to this is roughly 2014 after Monument Valley came out. This is the team. This is me with like much less hair, which is normally the reverse of what would happen. You expect to have less hair now. This is the team. We had just won the Apple Design Award, which was pretty awesome. And the success of Monument Valley has allowed us to expand now over the course of the past 5 years. The studio looks more like this now. We actually managed to hire some women. I think we've actually got more women than men right now, which is pretty cool. And some of us are still here. Some of us have like more hair than we did before. Some of us have kids now. And yeah, we remained part of the London studio, which I mentioned before, until about 2016, where we basically moved out of our parents' house. We had enough money. We basically are independently owned now. We still do visit, but we're in a completely separate studio somewhere else in London now. And yeah. Thank you. I'm glad that landed. I wasn't sure. Okay, cool. Has everyone read it? Cool. Have you had some, though? Everyone drink, please. I'm being produced. Have you all drank enough water today? Or eaten vegetables or fruits? Okay. So I've tried to distill the past, like, 7 years of what we've been doing into, like, 5 simple steps that I'm going to talk to you all about now. These are the things we try and do with every project we do, not just Monument Valley, but everything we've done, because we're trying to basically replicate the success of Monument Valley, so why wouldn't we try and redo the things we did before? First off, it's stand out. Very important. We use the test a lot. We try to respect our players. We aim to be platform perfect. And we also have reasonable and realistic metrics for success. So I'm just going to dive straight into standing out. So I quickly, before my talk, looked at a stat, and apparently it's about 1 million games. I think it's 900,000 games on the App Store. I'm going to round up to 1 million so that I can just say your chances of being seen on the App Store are 1 in 1 million. So how do you stand out? How do you make something that people are going to look at? I mean, there are some common sort of tropes in games right now. There's very popular games like, I don't know, Clash of Clans, or any game which has an icon with a man, like sort of always online strategy games. So we thought, okay, we need to make a game that will stand out. Maybe if it didn't look like a game, people would be like, that's weird, what is this thing? So we basically just looked at inspiration outside of games. We didn't want to conform to preconceived notions, because if someone doesn't like the Angry Man base building strategy game and your game looks like that, they're not going to look at it. So we took inspiration from things like this. This is MC Escher. Hope you all know Escher. Creates these optical illusions and sort of like a really awesome artist. So this is like one of the main themes of the game. We also had an internal target for the game where every screen of the game would be like a work of art in itself. And our lead designer, Ken, he had a massive interest in architecture, world architecture. So stuff like this. These are some steps in Spain. These are some cool roofs in Russia. These really cool crenellations, and even the color palette. This is from Uzbekistan. I think that's Pakistan, or is it Iran? Check my notes. I think it's Pakistan. I didn't write it down. And so our game is built based on things like that. This is a film called The Fall, which Ken was really into. Apparently no one's ever seen. It's apparently like a very, very niche, tiny audience, but really striking visuals, all these sorts of things. This looks literally like some of the stuff we put in the game. We just basically took all these inspirations, all the things that we cared about and were passionate about, and just put them in the game, because we were like, we're 8 people. There's no way we can compete with like these teams where they have more people on the user acquisition side of things than we have making the whole game. Monument Valley too, we doubled down on this sort of thing. So we were taking inspiration from things like candy. These are licorice, all sorts. They're very delicious. If you've never tried them, I recommend you do. This is the National Theatre in London. And we just were sort of, you could say we stole this stuff, but we thought it was cool and we wanted to just bring it to a new audience. We don't know how many people are into this sort of stuff, but we just sort of tried to find a way to make it accessible and manageable and nice. We even have Kimchi, the drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race. Lauren, I think basically everyone in the studio at the time of Monument Valley 2 was really into Drag Race, and we were like, all of these looks are so good, all these colors are so bold, why are we not just making a game that looks like that? And also Kimchi actually tweeted when she found out that we used it, and she was like, I love this game. So that was awesome. something we learned during development. We did it on Monument Valley 1, but was you could just print out all the screens of the game. If you're trying to make a game with a very strong visual style, you can print all the things out and just check that every individual screen is striking in some way. So we always wanted to have it so every screen of the game would be like a work of art. It should stand up as a work of art on itself, and then it should also stand up on a mechanical level as a game with some gameplay to engage with. We're not the only people doing this sort of thing. There's a really cool story about this game, Alto's Odyssey, if anyone's played it. Little humble brag, the guy who makes it works in the studio with us. His name's Harry, and he's my friend. And he basically made a premium Endless Runner game, and Endless Runners are very common as a free-to-play game on mobile, but something about the visual style of this lets you know that it's sort of, it's premium. It feels like something you want to pay for. You can tell that there's been a lot of love and a lot of craft put into it. And so it stood out. I believe he's won numerous awards for this, and he's getting the sort of critical reception and acclaim that it deserves. There's also stuff like Old Man's Journey and other titles which sort of occupy the same sort of space as Monument Valley. There's Prune by Joel McDonald, and I put this in there because he was like one person working on this game. And I think maybe he had two other people, but you don't need to be as big as we were, basically. If you want to do this, you could still. I think he came up with this style because he was a programmer, and it was easier for him to make these sort of like procedural-looking trees. But it's very striking, and it clearly draws on like inspiration from Japanese bonsai stuff. You can also stand out thematically. Monument Valley 2 is a game about a mother and her child. We're not used to seeing too many games about mothers and children, really, or it's going to be some sort of really weak plot device, like, here's your mum's been killed, now get revenge on the people who killed your mum, and we thought that was really whack. We thought we are privileged enough to like take risks in the studio. Remember, at this time, we had a bunch of money in the bank from Monument Valley 1, so we made Ro the main character. The daughter actually does not have a name. She actually has like almost no personality. I mean, they don't have faces, but we've given Ro, she has a hobby. She plays the flute, she has friends, she has a job. She's got everything. We just were like, we don't see any games about mothers. Let's put it in. At this point as well, some of the people on the team had kids, and it was like a very personal sort of story. So you could do this sort of stuff. You could focus on the art stuff. There's no reason why you can't sort of stack things up to stand out. So we already had the visual style and also just added like this additional layer of things that sort of get us on people's radar. We also user test a lot. This is something that we learned from being based in London with all these user experience designers. They were constantly like, without even fully playable prototypes, they might just be like some doodles on a notepad and be like, this is a banking app. I need you to take out some money. Can you just try and take out money with this thing? Like, explain to me how you're going to interact with this thing, how you're going to use it. And you just say, oh, I'm going to tap withdraw, and they would just like not respond to you. They wouldn't say anything to you. They just leave you with it, watch how you interact, and see if you got stuck. They'd write a little note and know that they need to improve on that thing. So we use that same philosophy. This is an illustrator called Mr. Bingo, who does like really rude postcards. You should look him up. He's also a very nice and cool guy. So we use this mindset. When we made anything in the game, we would just grab people. The studio had about 80 people, 8 people on the games team and 72 just employees. We had like a financial director in his 60s with a bunch of kids, and we would just grab people randomly, be like, can you just play this? Like, can you try and go from the bottom of this to the top? And we just leave them. And they'd be like, I'm really bad at games. We're like, you're perfect for the game we're trying to make. And we just leave them. And whenever they got stuck, sometimes it's extremely painful to watch people not understand your game design, but we understood that that's because we sucked at designing it, and it's not a problem of them not understanding it. It's just you've not communicated that information to them well enough. So user tested more. We constantly did this. This process of user testing is like sort of integral to us achieving the vision. We basically wanted to make a game anyone could complete. So we basically tested on like almost everyone in the studio. We would ask people, have you played it at all yet? Okay, cool. And try and constantly get new people who'd never even touched the game. It helped us identify things which we call wow moments. So because the game, we were like, we don't want to make a really long game. We're small enough. We want to make a game that a small studio can make. It's only going to last maybe 90 minutes. We want to be all killer, no filler. So in every separate chapter, we would keep putting stuff that we thought was impressive until we call them wow moments because basically we wanted the player testers to just go, wow, that was cool. So until they did that, we just kept tweaking everything. So there's a new mechanic in every chapter. Something new happens every time to keep you engaged. We don't try and regurgitate mechanics or anything like that. But seriously, like user testing is super effective. It's like one of the easiest things I think you can do. You can always probably find someone to test for you. And just, yeah, keep trying. Just keep going. Like there's one of the things I hate the most, so I'm going on a small rant now, is when I play a game and I feel like I'm too stupid to play the game. I played a few puzzle games recently, which are really good. But you reach this wall where you're like, I don't feel like you've taught me enough, and I don't know the mind of the creator to understand how to play, and so I just stop playing the game, and you don't want to do that. So that links in a lot to respect the player. I mean, it actually says retupect, but that's okay, he's a cute kid. So the two ways in which you can respect your players are, one, respect their time. This hourglass is quite ominous, but we don't have that many, we don't have that much time on this little rock in space. So do you want to like make an experience where people have like fond memories and be like, oh my God, this game was the first game I ever played, or this is the first time I saw my mom play a game, or this game when I played it with my daughter, it reminded me of our relationship and all this cool stuff? Or do you want to have made a game where people go, I remember that phase where I was hooked on that thing for a bit? Like, I think it's really important that you want to try and leave people with like a nice memory in their heart or in their mind about cool things. And also, leading on to what I was talking about, like repeated mechanics, where you were like, we just want 90 minutes of your time. We're going to give you a lovely 90 minutes, and then you just go about your life. You're not going to obsess about this game. You're not going to just go crazy. It's not going to keep you up at night. You're not going to be like constantly checking your phone to check how much energy you've regenerated. It's just, you enjoy this game, maybe tell a friend because it was cool. That's it. You can also respect the intelligence of your players. So this links in a lot with all the user testing we were doing. So there's a joke we had in the studio, which was that games don't have UX, but they have UI. So like any time when a player would get stuck with things, games would just say, oh, do this, and you get these massively long-winded tutorials like, do this, hold R while pressing X to do the thing. And it's like, can you just let me feel like I've sort of worked the things out myself so I feel a bit smart? And Monument Valley has about 9 words in English of tutorial text. It just says, tap the path to move either, and hold and rotate, which explains how you interact with things. Other than that, we leave you to it, and we have confidence or faith that the players will be able to understand how to play the game. We feel like through the user testing, we know that we've signposted everything enough, so they're not going to get stuck. They'll just keep going through it. And like our stat is that I think more than half of players finish the whole experience, which I think is actually a very high number. I don't know how that compares to other games, but I think over half your players completing a game is a very good thing to be proud of. Any more things I need to mention for my notes? No. Okay. What have I got next? Aim to be platform perfect. This is a term we use internally all the time, and it's quite self-explanatory. It's basically build the experience for the platform and try and take full advantage of all its features and all the things that make it good. Monument Valley originally was going to be an iPad-only game because we felt that iPhones were too small. And we thought, okay, iPad, it's got a nice big screen. We're like, okay, let's focus on the visuals then. Things look great on this device. What else? It's tactile. You could tap on things. All right, let's have this like one-to-one direct interaction with everything on the thing, everything on the screen. It'd be really cool. We did user testing again, as I keep saying, and we found that actually the game did work on iPhones as well. People didn't struggle. We thought things wouldn't be super readable, but that's why you test. That's why you check this stuff. You don't just sort of assume anything. You just double-check it, have a bit of data. User testing can help solve so many things like design conflicts. You'd be like, I think this is good. I think this is good. Let the user decide. So that was really cool. I mean, we had, what's the concept? What do you call it again? Have you heard of this idea of a coffee table book? So like when you have your fancy coffee table, you have like a fancy book on there, which would be like a talking piece. So if you invited some friends over for dinner, and they'd be like, oh, what's that? And you'd be like, oh, haven't you seen this? This is the new blah, blah, blah collection. So we wanted Monument Valley to be like a coffee table game. So like someone would come over and be like, oh, what's that? I'd be like, oh, that's the new Monument Valley on my new iPad. Haven't you seen that? And you just show off things. And all of this sort of ties into the idea of luxury and premium and being like, oh, it's really fancy. This is a screenshot from Land's End, which is our VR title. Originally, this was made for the Samsung Gear VR. If anyone knows what that is, it was like the first sort of foray into mobile VR headsets. And at the time, VR was just like, it was insane. There was like no established input methods. You had to like you had to take your phone out, and then you had to connect a Bluetooth controller to the phone, put the phone back in the headset, put the headset on. And then you had this like clunky, weird thing, and like all the games that we played made us throw up in like 3 seconds. And it was just a huge nightmare. So we were like, all right, what are the strengths of this platform? How can we like really focus on what makes this platform good? The main thing was that the Gear VR was supposed to be the most accessible way to play VR. You don't have all these like cables. If anyone's ever used like any Oculus Rift with the massive cable thing and you couldn't really move around, this was like wireless. You could give it to anyone. It's like the most accessible VR platform. So we said, why do we make the most accessible VR game? So we decided we wouldn't use controllers at all. The game's entirely played just, you put the headset on and you just look around like this. And Oculus loves it. They keep featuring us all the time. Like it's a good way, like if you make someone's hardware look good, they're gonna feature you and it's mutually beneficial. Like our game made it look like it was good to get a Gear VR. And Gear VR would like make it so people paid up for our game. Same thing with Apple. Apple release new phones all the time. There's stuff like when we made Monument Valley 2, iPhones didn't have this. There was no such thing as notch. Notch came out after, and we were like, okay, they've made this new phone with a notch. Let's make the game support this notch. We did it for the first game, we did it for the second game, and it just turned out that Apple stopped featuring any games that weren't supporting the notch. So even just by being a bit proactive and being smart and being like, let's jump on this thing, it's literally brought money into the company. Similarly, the new iPads support 120 hertz refresh rates, and previously it was 60, so things can look super smooth now. So we were like, oh, we bought the new iPad, we were like, let's, more for like, just so we could see how cool it would look, we made it 120 hertz and pushed it out onto the App Store as an update. Say, hey, if you've got the new iPad Pro, you could play the game at like twice the refresh rate. A few months down the line, Apple get in touch with us, say, do your games support 120? It's called ProMotion, which is actually the worst thing to ever try and search. If you type Apple ProMotion, you literally don't find anything about its technology. But yeah, they said, do your game support 120 hertz? We're like, yeah, they do. And it's like, okay, cool. Get featured, massive spike in sales, and it's just sort of just aim to play to the strengths of the platform is what I'm getting at. Next one. I don't know why I picked this image. I thought it was cool. It's quite deep. Success is a journey, not a destination. So try and have reasonable and realistic metrics for your success. Does anyone know what this game is? Has anyone ever played this game? Has anyone ever downloaded this game? Okay. So it's called Blip Blup. We released it in 2013, and it was basically made with the exact same team, with the exception of one team member. It was basically made with the exact same team as Monument Valley, but this was like a complete failure. So yeah, we released this game back in 2013. It's, in my opinion, still a very good game. It looks very gamey, and it was like our attempt at making a game with this newly formed, games industry pro team. It did terribly. Like, I'm still proud of it. I think it's really cool. There's actually a new game that's come out. It's a free-to-play game, and I think it's called like Roller Splat, and it basically has copied the entire aesthetic of our game. But I'm not, sorry, that sounds like I'm being really bitter about it. But while it wasn't a commercial success, it was successful in a bunch of other ways. First of all, we shipped this game, and I think it's really important to realize that shipping a game is a success in itself. It's extremely freaking hard to get games out. Second thing is, we had never made a game together. We didn't know anything about each other. We basically just, the companies hired random people who they thought were cool and said, go in a room and make games. And we managed to like learn a lot about what each other's passions are, what makes us all tick. So it's successful in that way. The most important way it was successful is that it's built with Unity, which would go on to be the tool that we've basically used for all of our games now. And none of us knew how to sort of like collaborate using Unity. We've used it before, like personally, we weren't sure how it integrates with like Git or any sort of source control software. So it did really well. It was like, in that sense, it was good. Obviously, we had the luxury of sort of the support of a big company, and we were so privileged to like take all these risks. But that's why I'm here telling you now, because like I'm trying to share all the knowledge that I've been so privileged to like gain and share with you all. This is the actual email from Mills, the shorts guy, telling us what we had to achieve with Monument Valley. So we didn't really have super strict things. Back in the day, it was called Zenith. This is probably the most audacious one, which is win Apple iPad Game of the Year 2013, at the very least. We did actually get Game of the Year, but it was 2014 because we missed our estimated release date. Main thing I want to get here is, even though we felt like we had something really, really good with Monument Valley. We never sort of let that go to our heads. Like 200,000 copies in year one is actually like very modest and quite conservative estimate. Like we didn't ever let ourselves get too cocky or anything. We're like, knowing our track record, we maybe will only sell 200,000 in year one. We actually sold like 2.4 million or something. But anyway, so yeah, this is from Mills. This was like, he says no pressure at the end, like it's cool. Like it's clearly a lot of pressure when the CEO sends this. And if I'm entirely honest, I feel like if Monument Valley wasn't a success, I might not be here right now because it had reached a point where we had been just spending all this money and never ever succeeding. I think I'm going way too fast. I'm not sure. I'll try and slow down. So yeah, actually that's all the things. So yeah, I've gone way too fast. I'm gonna have to answer like 1,000 questions then. So these are things I want you to try. Try and stand out. Draw on all the things you love in the world and put them in your game. What's the worst thing that's gonna happen? Someone's gonna see it and like it. Like, there's no reason why you should be trying to rush and try and conform. As I say, like, if someone already has a preconceived notion of things they don't like, and you make something that looks like that, they're probably not going to be interested. Use the test a lot. Test on your parents. Test, depending on who your target audience is. We tried to go like as mainstream as wide as possible. We wanted to make a game which was basically the first game people ever complete. So that's why we tested on everyone, and it sort of has gone down well. Respect your players, respect their time, respect their intelligence. Don't try not to hold their hand too much with stuff, but that just basically means you probably have to do a bunch more user testing and try and sort of iron out all the pain points, iron out all the wrinkles in your design, and just make people feel like they've achieved something as opposed to just being told exactly what to do. And then you go, yeah, you did exactly what I told you to do, you're so smart. Aim to be platform perfect. Play to the strengths of whatever hardware you're developing for. If you're doing something with Switch, maybe you want to do something that uses the touchscreen to some degree. Like, don't make a match 3 game that you have to play with a controller on Xbox or something, because I don't feel like that would work. And yeah, it can also just mean like, try and make someone's hardware look great and awesome, and like show but try and be the killer app, I guess. Like, try and be the killer app on someone's platform. And if you are, they'll be like, we like you. Here you are, be on the store, be in everything, be on our like keynotes when we do presentations. And have reasonable and realistic metrics for success. I cannot stress this one enough. Like, has anyone here, who here has shipped a game? You're all successful game developers, as far as I'm concerned, because it's insanely hard. There's so many things that get shut down and things that don't make it, like, genuinely, like, success is a journey, not a destination. Like, you shouldn't just expect, like, I'm just gonna make this game once, I'm gonna make £1 bajillion, I'm gonna make Minecraft, like, on my first try. And, like, that's just not how things work. But finally, you also have to like make sure you have fun. Thanks for listening. This is actually a lie because I thought I might be too quick. So I have extra hidden slides. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, cool. Because I knew I was like, I think I talked too quickly for that to fill out the time properly. So I didn't include this in the main part of the talk, but it's a thing. I think, who else? Andrew referenced this. Ingvild, did you mention this? The fact that luck is a thing. Like, I like to think that we were making our own luck with the 5 things that we were trying to do. We were trying to make a game that looked like nothing else anyone had ever seen. We were trying to play to the strengths of the platform. But sometimes things happen that you have no freaking control over, and they can like change your life in crazy ways. So some stuff like this happens. Like this is like the second week we're out. Like, has anyone heard of this Spanish singer called Ariana Grande? Apparently she's quite well known. She tweeted this. She played Monument Valley somehow. She saw Monument Valley, played it, decided it was cool to just tweet that to her, like, however many tens of millions of followers. That gave us a massive spike in revenue. Similarly, sometimes someone at Netflix will just put your game into House of Cards. So this is a cool story because someone at Netflix like emailed us. We thought it was a joke. They said, hey, we really like your game, we want to get in the House of Cards. We were like, yeah, sure. And sort of sent off the email, yeah. Sent the email out, heard nothing for a few weeks. Got an email in, which was like, okay, here's the script. This is how we were like, what, huh? Okay. And so we read the script, and we were like, yeah, we believe you're showing the game in a nice light. It wasn't like someone was playing this game and then going around killing little girls or anything like that. It was just nice. And then they send us back like the early like pre-release footage of it, and we saw like Kevin Spacey sat down in this. I don't know what's up with these fingers. Like he was playing it like a pinchy game. I don't understand, but like we just saw him playing the game, and people were talking about Monument Valley. And we were like, oh my god, like this can happen. This is weird. But obviously, never like don't ever expect this sort of stuff to happen. But if it does, it's very good. Obviously, like while this episode was out, loads of money came in, and kind of annoyingly, people were writing articles like, oh, by the way, that game from House of Cards is real. And we were like, what? Like I think at this point we'd already won like an Apple Design Award or something. So we felt like we're the biggest like rock stars in the world. And apparently, yeah, most people watching Netflix had no idea we existed, which is nice to sort of keep your expectations down. And also sometimes you get stuff like this. This was the February of 2014. The game launched in April. And there was this massive, crazy discourse about Flappy Bird and Dong Nguyen, I'm not good at pronouncing that name, took the game down because he was terrified. He was so sad at the fact that his beautiful little simple game had become addictive, and it was starting up all this debate like, these mobile games are bullshit, man. All they do is just take all your money. They just try and take all your money, take all your time. And then we sort of came out like, what about you give us £2.50? And you play this game for an hour and a half, and then we never talk to you ever again and leave. And people were like, yeah, we want that. That's exactly what we want. So yeah, that was just lucky. I have been extremely fast, but I think that's okay because we had some technical issues before. So maybe it makes it easy. So I'm really finished now. Thank you. Bye. I'm not going to go on and do questions. That's okay. Thank you. It's been 40 minutes, actually. That's not bad.
Being
That's not bad.
Excellent producer, you saw that we were a bit behind time, and you've got us straight back on time, which is perfect.
Cut the scope of my talk a bit.
And we still have time for questions, so if anyone has any questions, would you like to come down and take the mic? Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to be hanging around for like the whole thing, and I'm very approachable and recognizable.
Hi, thanks for the great talk. It was really nice.
Oh, thank you very much.
So with such a large kind of amount of money in the bank, to put it like that, how does that affect kind of stress levels in the team? A lot of stress comes from not having enough money or not knowing when that's going to be. How does that affect kind of the creative discussions and talks and timeframes?
It makes us like, we're spoiled. We're super spoiled. We're pampered. Back when we were part of the studio in Shoreditch, the London studio, it's basically in like the most expensive part of Shoreditch. It's like the most expensive building. We got stuff like, we had breakfast and cereals provided by the company, and we did yoga every Wednesday and had massages and stuff, which is kind of why our development costs were so high, because of all these benefits and stuff. But it was just, it's a rare treat to be told, like, make whatever you want. Yeah, it's fine. Like, there was no pressure. Like, because our track record had actually been kind of bad, there was like, they didn't expect anything of us. And it was sort of like, Monument Valley was our chance to be like, okay, we've been given this freaking golden ticket. We've been given like a blank check. Let's be like really like brave and audacious. Let's make a game that doesn't look like a game. Let's like, we could have just taken all the opportunity we're given and just be like, let's make the best Clash of Clans killer or something. But we're like, let's not even do that. Like, let's take an opportunity that we don't believe anyone else will ever get almost, and just try and push the boundary. So yeah, we were so relaxed. It was great.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi. Yeah,
Hi.
so when you want to put everything you want into a game, like you pull inspiration from everything and you put in whatever you want, every idea you come up with that you love, how do you avoid over-scoping when you're trying to make the finished project? Because we have, or there's like constant talks that over-scoping is a problem, and that sometimes it becomes too much. How did you avoid that in the process?
For us, we actually made loads of content for the game. The main thing that decided if it went in or out was like how it user tested. We have a bunch of levels which people probably would have some people would have enjoyed, because people want really hard levels. And we made hard levels, and we found like it turned people off so much. Like, it's only like such a small subset of people who would actually enjoy such difficult, stupid puzzles. One called The Wall, which was like literally almost like a freaking wall because no one can get over it. I think we just sort of stayed true to our principles. We like, this game can only last 90 minutes. When we did our user testing, we would like time it and be like, okay, we'd watch when people were getting a bit fatigued and see when people started to lose interest and be like, we can't hold their interest for longer than maybe 2 hours at max. And 90 minutes felt good. We had all that inspiration from films. We're like, films are about 90 minutes. We wanted to sort of treat it like that sort of like an experience of like a finite length of time. We were pretty good. We were pretty good at cutting stuff, to be honest. Like we didn't have a moment where like Dan, who was our producer on the project at the time, like saying we got to cut this. Like I think Ken himself at the time was getting a bit bored of games that lasted forever, so it was more like he personally didn't. It was like almost like the team's interest was only as long as 90 minutes anyway. So yeah, mainly user testing. Like if it didn't feel really good, we just trimmed it because we wanted to be, as I say, all killer, no filler. So anything that felt like even remotely like mediocre level, bin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for a very good talk.
Oh, thanks.
So now this is probably different depending on who you ask, but what would be your personal insights on the whole working for a company versus starting your own company with people that you know?
That's a really good question. I don't think I've ever considered this. If you want to start a company, people you know, like, I like stuff like, you know, Prune, which I showed. The guy who created that used to work at like, I think he's working on Call of Duty games at like Castlevania, and I think he saved up. It depends. It depends on how like privileged you are. Like I'm privileged in that I live in London. My parents are nearby. If I wanted to like quit my job and pursue this crazy dream, like I'm cool with my parents. They'd let me move in with them. They wouldn't charge me rent. They just let me like just do whatever I wanted. I guess it varies a lot depending on like your personal like situation. I wouldn't ever suggest like, oh, quit your job, go do this. Like you're definitely gonna do it. That's just very irresponsible. And I wouldn't recommend like just like, you know, people say let's make a band, man. Like let's just like give up our jobs and do that. It's a bit like that. This market, this industry is a bit crazy. Like you never know. I mean, it is cool that where's Andrew? He said like you can get a game sign on a GIF, which is why I'm like push the visuals of your game as much as I can. I think I'm not answering your question at all. I wouldn't recommend like quitting your day job unless you have the means to sustain yourself. Like again, don't expect to like quit your job, make a game, be a billionaire, just relax. Is that any good to you?
Supposedly seeing as it's a bit of a risky move to sort of start a company. And some people do say that you should probably start working for a company because then you own your skill while somebody else pays your bills.
That's a nice catchphrase. Yeah, it'd be quite cool. Yeah, I think like stay at a company, you can learn stuff, you can get a little insight. I just like security, like just generally as a personal thing. Like I'd rather probably like work, even if I wasn't even in games and I was into games, I'd probably like still be cool working at like the home office or being a librarian while working on games in my spare time as a passion thing. But yeah, it's quite hard, you know. It's like it's art. Like I don't want anyone to be a starving artist. I would never recommend someone become a starving artist. So I don't know, take the risks that you're comfortable taking, I guess. If that's it.
Yeah, I think that's a quite good answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hey.
Fantastic talk.
You're too kind.
So what I wanted to ask was, did you ever think or dream about reaching where you are now?
No. To be honest, no. We were just like, I personally found the game, I was like, I don't know how people are going to react to this game. I was a bit skeptical. I was like, all right, we've seen the user testing, but I was like, in Shoreditch, it's like East End London, it's full of hipsters. I was like, is this game only going to appeal to hipsters? Or do you think like people's parents are going to really play this game? So yeah, I had conservative expectations. I thought I was proud of the work we did. I was like, this is good. Like, I think people will like this. I don't know if we're going to have like the commercial return that we're hoping for. So no, but it blew up. And again, all this lucky stuff happened as well. Like it was just like a lot of being at the right place at the right time, and the industry was, it had this massive, there was a huge discussion about, remember when people were like selling their phones with Flappy Bird installed because you couldn't get it from the store anymore? And people were like that hooked, and yeah, we just seemed to have the perfect like medicine. But no, didn't expect it. Very happy, like we now know not to expect that ever again, because we know all these crazy things happen, and we're just trying to like do our best to ever achieve something like this again, but realistically, like, it took us a while to accept that we will probably never have anything this big ever again.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. Nice hat, by the way.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I know that there are a lot of students here. Great talk, by the way. And
You're all too
there are
kind in this
probably
country.
a lot of them curious what a producer does, how does one fill that role? Maybe what is your typical day?
A typical day, it's a mixed bag. We are still really small. So I came up via QA, which is a common route into production. You can just like get assistant producer roles. So my day is I get in about 9:45. At 10 a.m., my whole team has a stand-up. We do a team stand-up at 10. I run that. We have an artist working with us remotely in Italy. I mean, I get everyone. I basically I get everyone. I'm like, come on, guys, it's 10. We do this the same time every day. Everyone, come on. And I make everyone get in the room. We have a little Shaun the Sheep doll. Whoever's holding the Shaun the Sheep doll is allowed to speak. And you just basically say, yesterday I did this feature. Today I'm going to continue to work on this feature. And you just pass it around. And then people let me know if they have any sort of issues like, my Mac is running slow. And I can't run Unity properly anymore. And I go, I'm going to get on that right after stand-up. So like that's about 15 minutes. Then I like check my emails. Probably a bunch of random stuff. Like no one else on the team really has to check emails apart from me. Go through all my emails. Probably some sort of meeting needs to occur. I need to like make sure the meeting rooms are booked. If unless I've booked it, then it's perfectly organized. So running around with meetings, facilitating stuff. I basically it's a lot of herding. I guess it's like being a parent to some degree, or like being like a sheep herder or farmer or something. Because like people genuinely forget stuff. Like you're the one who's like responsible for remembering all the things that need to happen day by day. So like, yeah, meetings, loads of meetings. I'll talk about stuff. I'll like sometimes do hiring. Like we're so small that sometimes like I'm in charge of the website. Like I maintain our website and stuff. I inherit a lot of random things that like no one else, like I'm not going to ask our lead artist, like, can you put some job posts on the website? Like you basically do the jobs that everyone else hates. But it's great, production's great. Also a bit of like sort of scheduling, you do schedules and you look at like resourcing, and I'm like the one who's looking at the timeline of the project, and I think about ways I can encourage my team to, try not to scope too crazily and be like, hey, we've only got 3 months and you want to make this work which will take 8 months, so which ones, like, if you had to cut this or this, which would you cut? And stuff like that. Like you try and facilitate and help people make difficult decisions. But it's like I never tell them what to do. It's always just a process of like helping, facilitating, being a bit like a coach, like an agile coach. And it's coachy. It's good. I think it differs very greatly in like bigger studios, but thank you. Thank you very much, mate.
Okay, so these will be the last 2 questions. Yeah.
So I don't really have a question, but rather just praise. I was really happy that you released Monument Valley on Windows Phone.
Oh, we make about £4 on that every quarter. Yeah. it's really low.
One of those sales was my mum,
thank you.
I think it's the only game she's ever finished.
Wow.
That's awesome. Did you play it together?
No, I just told her about it and installed it on her phone, and then she wouldn't talk to me until she'd finished it.
Nice. Has she played anything else since?
The expansion pack for Monument Valley.
Nice. Thank you. I'll do checks in the mail. Thank you so much. Thanks for evangelizing my game. Hey.
Hello. Producing production questions. I've worked with a lot of different teams, a lot of different producers. Some of them are great and do their jobs, and some of them tend to veto a lot of the team's decisions, say, no, we're doing it my way. I know, right?
Yeah, why would you do that?
Terrible people. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about either how not to be a bad producer or how to deal with a bad producer if you were stuck with one?
Let me start with how not to be a bad producer. Be like really nice and friendly. Like I don't know. I'm happy to do like really like I'm happy to get my hands dirty and do like horrible stuff. I care about people. I'm one of those like touchy feely. I hug my team all the time. Like listen to people. Like I don't think I've ever really had experience with like a bad producer who was like trying to get their own way. I feel like the only people I've worked with have like been like creative leads or like someone who kind of is allowed to have their own way. I mean, I guess it depends on the sort of studio culture as well. Like we're super open and honest. We're like super transparent. If you're interested in like how Monument Valley did, we've put out like infographics. Like we tell you exactly like where all our money's come from and what we spend it on. So we've sort of incorporate that culture set into the blood. Like everyone we're friends. We actually like each other. It's really weird and annoying. Like we go to each other's weddings and stuff. I'm trying to think. Give me 1 second to think about like a negative interaction, because I've been here so long I can't remember what it was like at other places almost. I mean, do you have like an HR department? Is there someone in the team whose like job is to sort of resolve conflicts? Because that's kind of my role. Like the producer should almost be the person to resolve the conflicts, but if it's like they're the person creating the conflicts, that makes it kind of weird.
Usually it's just me turning into the villain.
Oh, are you the?
I'm the one who stands up to the bad producer usually.
Okay. I thought you were saying that you were the villain. I was like, you're the
this
bad
is not a
guy.
trap,
Get
not a
out of
trap,
here. You're
no.
learning all my tricks. Okay.
No. I tried being a producer for a week. It was too much. Too much.
Oh no. Yeah. Like I would probably try and, unless you're like trained in like, there's like conflict resolution. There's like courses you can do, and like there's a book called like Difficult Conversations where you could be like, hey, like I've been talking to everyone. You're being a bit of a dick, and like I've got this anonymous feedback from everyone that says you're a dick, and maybe you'd want to read that. Like, I mean, if someone's really like being toxic, like I wonder what that person's future in that company should kind of be. Like if they're being that bad. I don't know. I would try and like go to anyone whose like job it is to resolve that stuff. Like it can be quite a lot to take on, especially like someone. You don't know how someone's gonna react if you sort of say, "Hey, can you be a bit honest?" Like, "Fuck you, man. What do you know, man? I've been in this industry for blah 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 years. You don't know shit. You guys all suck." And maybe you just kind of don't want that person on your team. So yeah, go to the authorities. I don't know, but depending on how bad it goes, I'm not sure. But yeah, if you can talk to them, if you feel comfortable and safe, like sort of having a bit of a heart-to-heart, a lot of times people do respect people being very honest. Like hopefully they'll identify the fact that it's very difficult to be like, hey, your behavior's having a negative impact on the whole team. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, raise their awareness. Some people just like don't know. You don't know what you don't know, you know? So maybe not even aware that they're being a dick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike.
I'm really finished.
Fantastic
Okay.
talk.
Thanks everyone. Sorry. It was really great.